as of right now, there's 2 TV shows running. There's a baby in here, and there's the baby, if you can hear it, hear her, excuse me. And there's also the air running as well, so that's the sound that you hear. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about when I went to the North Pole, which is a interesting story. I was in the Navy for 14 years, and I was on the Topeka for 2 tours and the San Francisco for 1 tour. One of the last tour on the Topeka, the USS Topeka, I made chief, and so they took me off of that boat and put me on the San Francisco. So when I say I do 2 tours on the Topeka, it's actually 2 tours total, just 2 boats. The Topeka is a 688I, which is a Los Angeles improved class, which means that it has missiles that fire vertically, and it also does not have fairwater planes, which when you look at a submarine, it's those wings that are sticking out of the top of the sail, which is that large structure that comes up. Where they do still have those forward planes, but they're retractable, and they're located on the bow of the sub. Anyways, that's a improved Los Angeles class. So I think it was 2013, we had to move from San Diego to Kittery, Maine for the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, our time period there, which we were doing a refill and all that stuff, refuel and all that stuff. We had to wait a little bit because the USS Miami caught on fire, and we were supposed to go into the berth that she was in, but they had to make some changes, so it took us a little while before we could even leave San Diego. This was going to be a change of home port. It was going to take at least 2 years. And yeah, so we weren't going to be San Diegans anymore. We were going to be New Englanders, looking for our khakis. Anyways, yeah, so we went by way of the North Pole. We went up north. There's 3 different ways, 4, whatever, but the way that we went, it was up through the North Pole and then down like between Greenland and Canada, and made our way into Maine. Actually, we went to Connecticut first, and then we pulled out and then went to Maine. But anyways, yeah, so we were going to the North Pole, and we were going to surface at the geographic North Pole, which is pretty cool to me. It took us a couple weeks to get up there. I want to say 1.5 or 2 weeks, something like that. And as we went up, the ship, the inside of the ship, the boat, it just got colder and colder and colder. There were some parts of the boat that were kind of warm, but for the most part, I was wearing a few layers and my jacket and all that stuff, just to, you know, walk around in the torpedo room and all that. It was about 34 degrees, if I remember right, in the torpedo room. Yeah, it was very cold. And before we surfaced, we actually did something called the Order of Magellan, where you go around the Earth. Well, we cheated because we were, you know, all the way up there at the North Pole, and we're able to go around the Earth a couple times within the span of like an hour. So yeah, that's what we did. And then so we went to surface. And another thing that the improved class submarine has is a way to make it so just your 2 center ballast tanks will be evacuated all the water coming out of it, things like that. So it's made to be able to break through the ice, and we broke through. We didn't break through very well though. So when we broke through, the Arctic Sublab, which is a group of people that come and ride the boat to the North Pole with all the boats, where they were running around going, this is the thickest ice we've ever broken through, 7 feet. Which, okay, it was pretty impressive. It was pretty thick when I walked up there, for sure. But one of the things that we noticed when we got up there was that the rudder didn't break through. So the rudder didn't break through, which means we didn't break completely through. The sail came up, and then we found the weapons shipping hatch, which is the forwardmost hatch, and chainsawed through the ice to the weapons shipping hatch, so we were able to open it. Yeah. So we got that open, and we went up topside, and I was the polar bear watch, which was the most worthless thing ever. I was running around with an M16, and if someone was to be attacked by a polar bear, I was supposed to save them with an M16. But those rounds would not break through the polar bear. It would probably piss the polar bear off and have him attack me. So I was kind of mad about it, but whatever. But I got to walk around up topside with an M16. I had a Mustang suit on and all that. Mustang suit on. And so I was walking around. I got relieved though, so I could re-enlist because it was about that time. And we had to wait a long time for Commander Bells to come up to do the re-enlistment because he was just hanging out in the wardroom. So yeah, we waited a long time for him to come up. He finally came up. And in order to re-enlist, what you do is you sign paperwork that you get kicked out of the Navy with. Like you do your discharge paperwork, and then after that you enlist, you re-enlist. So you redo your contract basically. So it was a couple of us. We all signed the paperwork to become civilians again. And then all of a sudden we started hearing this screaming. You need to get down, there's water coming in the weapons shipping hatch. Like, oh my gosh. So we all stopped what we were doing. And because of that, technically I was a civilian for 2 months until we finally got around to doing the re-enlistment up in Kittery. And yeah, so we went down, and I was told, we were all told by the command that it was the ice melting that was going into the boat. And when I went down the ladder, it was salt water. A lot of that water went into my mouth. It was definitely salt water. So I don't know what they're trying to do with that story, but yeah, what happened was since the rudder didn't break out of the water or break out of the ice, we didn't completely break out of the ice. So the entire time we were up there, the ice was pushing the submarine down slowly, but it was pushing it down. And eventually it got to the point where water was coming into the boat. So yeah, it took forever to get the weapons shipping hatch shut because of all the ice that was in the way. It was kind of funny too. So there was a guy that had a school down in San Diego that gave him a bunch of letters to Santa. And since we were going to the North Pole, we were the perfect people to give these letters from the kids to Santa Claus. So what we did is we had one of the guys dress up as Santa Claus, and then we had pictures of the dude handing Santa Claus the letters and all that stuff. Well, anyways, the guy that dressed up as Santa Claus was the guy that shuts the weapon shipping hatch. It was every single portion of the whole of pretty much any evolution will have a watch bill and certain people doing certain things. It's this, no matter how menial it is, they're still there, so everyone knows where they're supposed to be. And his job was to shut the weapon shipping hatch. And it took forever, and he was sitting there dressed up as Santa Claus and finally got it shut. So the big joke for the whole story is that Santa Claus saved our lives because he got the weapon shipping hatch shut. Once that was shut, we started going down. We, purposefully just started going down, and then whatever. The thing is, though, directly underneath the weapon shipping hatch is the upper level passageway. But under the upper level passageway are all these transformers in the middle level passageway. And we had all that salt water fall onto the transformers and started a fire. We had a fire going on in the middle level, and then directly under the middle level passageway was my torpedo room. I was the torpedo LPO, didn't have a chief with us, so I was the guy who was in charge of the torpedo room. And after the water was going down, causing the fire, it went down into the torpedo room and started just covering all my weapons with salt water, filling up the pukas that we have with salt water, all that stuff. So that'll happen. And when I say a fire in middle level from the in the transformers, what I mean is we had the transformers. One of them was smoking black smoke. I don't know if anyone ever saw a flame. I wasn't a part of that. I was a part of the flooding efforts down in the torpedo room because it was my room. I had, that was my thing, and they were already taking care of the transformers. So I was down there, and I was with a couple guys, and we were trying to get the water out of the pukas, wiping the weapons down so they didn't have, damage to their paint and stuff like that. Damage to the paint's actually a pretty bad thing. It doesn't sound like it is, but it is. We got the fire taken care of, and I got all the torpedoes cleaned and all that stuff. That was all taken care of eventually. It was probably the only time in my life that I wasn't sure that I was going to live. It was pretty bad. And so yeah. Sorry, my mind just drew a blank. So yeah, we got all those taken care of, and we started steaming along towards Maine. And we came out on the other side of the ice. We surfaced. We made our way down the North Sea, and it was in the middle of a nor'easter. So we were shaking around quite a bit. I think we submerged when we could, but yeah, it was pretty bad. One thing that happened, though, that we didn't find out about until we surfaced on the other side is that since we were in a hurry, the radio man never got the message off that we had an issue and that we were submerging and we were going on to our next place. So the Navy was assuming that we had sank, that we were dead. The Navy doesn't go crazy and starts throwing out there like, oh, these guys are dead, because there's so many, so there's like 150, 170 people on board, and you have all those people's family members freaking out, and you're not actually sure that we died, you know. So yeah, they didn't go run around telling everyone. You won't find it in the news or anything like that. What they were doing was waiting for the time period that we were supposed to come up, so that we can, you know, if we didn't come up when we were planning to come up, then they would start, you know, okay, let's figure this out. But yeah, they were like, oh, you guys are alive, that's great, because we thought you were dead. Yeah, and that was my trip to the North Pole. I've been there, and I would like to go to the South Pole. That way I've been on both sides of the earth. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but you never know. Something I like to tell people about this. So when you're up there and it's as cold as it is, which apparently was warmer in the water. Not that you would be safe if you fell in the water. You totally wouldn't be. You would die. But you didn't feel cold. You just hurt everywhere. It was very painful. We kept on hearing stories about, you know, like, oh, you're not allowed to play football up there anymore because I guess submarines would go up and play football or whatever. So some guy lost his ear. It just fell off, you know. Stupid stories like that. But yeah, I would do it again. I would have done things maybe a little bit differently, but I would have done it again for sure. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Maine is wonderful. I loved living in Maine. If you ever get the chance to live in Maine, move to Maine.